The first step in tackling any writing task, but especially on a test where there is not an opportunity for revision, is to carefully examine the question being posed. In this prompt, students were given both a source to draw from as well as an actual task. When there is a bold statement, students should pay particularly close attention to the topic being emphasized. For question 48, students were to write a short article, which tells us that the audience would be an adult and that the style should be formal. In that formal paragraph, they are to present an argument, so a clear position was to be made. In this case, the position was chosen for students, and this bold statement becomes the precise central idea. It is also important for students to notice the requirements of the essay. In number 48, students were to include an idea from the source and a concept from class. Once you've looked at the prompt, your next step is to carefully look at the rubric. At that point, students should be ready to write. The example in front of you, while not perfect, is a strong response. Written by a student, it captures both the main thrust of the prompt and addresses the requirements of the rubric. It begins with a topic sentence that clearly draws from the prompt, one of your major jobs, but then also identifies an overarching idea. Notice that it doesn't get into specifics, but speaks to this general benefit to the lives of students that comes from when schools teach about religion. From there, the author moves into evidence from the article provided. Using both the first and last name of the reporter, the author introduces specific evidence. Notice that it's better to avoid question words and use precise nouns. I used religious literacy as a replacement for what our student author put in. That's a term we used in class and always valuable to include. It's also good to try and break apart complex sentences into more direct statements for a general audience. A transition would have improved moving from the piece of text evidence to our class idea. What the student did well, however, is not announce that they were about to provide a detail from class. Many students wrote, "One idea we learned in class was," which is not something an audience member in the Gettysburg Times would connect with. Instead, simply state your idea. Don't announce what's coming, state it. In addition, teaching about religion can help students learn tolerance. And then I tried to narrow it down to be a little bit more precise. The student then closes with a conclusion that's closely connected to their topic sentence. Overall, a strong answer. The second open-ended from the text had students supporting a claim based upon a larger writing. This was less focused on their ability to put together a structured paragraph and more about their ability to pull and explain information from a text. Do you think Christian subgroups have more similarities or differences? Provide one detail from the text to support your opinion. Where some students got in trouble is they didn't look carefully at the rubric to notice that they also needed to elaborate on evidence. We do not want to just drop in isolated quotes when we write. We want to show how those quotes connect to our central idea, either by explaining, by analyzing, or by moving further. In this case, the student made the same mistake that many did. Just because it says, "Do you think" in the passage doesn't mean you should start with that. We know this is your position unless you cite an expert that you are pulling from. So in this case, the author should have just written, "Christian subgroups have more similarities." It didn't matter which side you chose, so long as you supported it and then explained your evidence. The author here, the student author, says in the text, "It tells." Instead of "it tells the reader," it would be better to use the name of World Book Encyclopedia, since that was the source. Using precise author names is one of our goals for 7th grade. They then draw from some specific evidence focusing on scripture. Many students then either stopped or they wrote the more or less the same statement again in their own words. They said that the subgroups are more similar because they have the same scripture. That statement is already in the evidence. Your job in the elaboration is to explain how that supports the central idea by giving a little bit more depth. In this case, our student author did an excellent job of naming an example of the Bible, though that should have been capitalized, and then explaining how important Scripture is to shaping the actions of followers, connecting that in their final sentence back to the central idea of similarities. That final step there is where a lot of students stumble in 7th grade. Our goal is to get better as well.